9:02 a.m. We are here to have a bargaining session with the IAEP. My name is Nikki Powell, I'm the interim HR director.
Kristen Buell, Deputy County Attorney.
Janice Floyd, Human Resources.
Dave Torcell, EMS Chief.
West Marino County Administrator.
Debbie Bowers, Assistant County Administrator.
Eric Gilmore, Public Safety Director.
Tamika Williams, Business Operations Manager.
Chad Stimmel, President IAP.
Amy Hurd, Chief Shop Steward, IAEP.
Michael Morosco, National Rep, IAEP.
Dick Anderson, Chief Negotiator for the IAEP.
Diamond Melvin, Secretary IAB.
Emily Stevens, Treasurer, IAP.
We usually start with a quick recap, so I will do that. We met on July 25th. In that session, we TA'd 7 articles. We closed that session with the county to provide articles to the union. The county provided those articles on August 17th. The union proposed October 25th as the next date to bargain. We bargained on October 25th. I showed that we TA'd 7 articles in that session. I have those for you today.
Okay.
We closed that session with the union to provide the articles to the county. The union provided articles to the county on December 11th. The union followed up on December 29th with dates to resume bargaining. And on January 11th, the county sent today as the date for bargaining. I show we TA'd Article 3, 4, 5, 7, 11, 13, and 14.
Okay, all right.
Pass over. I'll give you a minute to do that before I go to the other articles.
Before we actually execute the tentative agreement on Article 4 union rights, we do have a question of clarification on the time for the union at orientation in 4.04. Okay, so I'm gonna keep that with me for one until we.
Okay. Start with Article 4.
Yes. Until recently, the union was provided time at the orientation at Station 10. And the language that, the pre-existing language said they'd be given the time at the department-specific portion of the orientation. It's the human resource portion of the orientation that has been moved here to downtown.
Correct.
We would like, and that, since the language that was agreed to before the new
The
last
process has
sentence,
changed, correct?
that it's still the department-specific portion of the orientation, still done in Station 10. We just want to clarify and ensure that the time that the union has access at orientation will be at Station 10 during the department-specific portion of orientation.
Aaron?
I think we had, I think we,
Is that you guys?
yeah, I think we had determined that it was gonna be down at HR, that's what we still trying to work out.
We did move orientation back to the HR department from the public safety department. And we still allow the unions to come in the last half of the day.
At 3?
Correct, at 3 o'clock for the orientation. I'm unsure what they do at the department for orientation since we've moved it back in town. I think they go straight into training.
But
So we could change the language to,
no, our preference would be to keep the language, but make it happen in that manner, that it happen at the department-specific portion
I
of
don't
the
think there is a
orientation.
department-specific portion of orientation.
There's
But-
there is house that they do.
Oh,
that's-
I'm looking at Eric.
No, absolutely. So there's training. We do that when we have the new employees come in, as you guys know, we do the training with those people. They go through their phases of training. Is that the piece, is that where y'all want to do it versus the HR? Because they do the one-day orientation down here.
Right.
They do the HR discussion and everything. And we was trying to get it during, when we had the public safety, during, when Miss Ivy doing orientation, we did it there.
Correct.
And that's where it was supposed to be done, correct?
Right,
At
but
that
now
time.
that it's moved
That is moved down, well,
downtown.
we assumed that because HR had moved it back down here, that it would be done down here is what we had thought and what we had proposed, so. That way, it keeps it the same, in the same line as HR was during their HR onboarding process.
And all of our other union reps do come at 3 o'clock on orientation day downtown.
Well, next time we caucus, let us.
Okay, and again, you know, we had to make some operational changes, and that's why we moved it back downtown,
Right.
so we can continue to discuss.
Okay.
All right, so I will jump into the rest of the open articles.
Okay.
So on Article 6, we are still going to maintain our language, and I'll go through this real quick. Article, or 1A is referenced in Article 8, so there, we don't need to duplicate it. B, shift assignments are operational need. And then 3, that's already county procedure, and that's how we maintain seniority. So Article 8, we did agree to your language in 8.02D. In 8.03 sick leave, we agreed to changing it to scheduled. We did not agree to changing it to 12. And I can go through that calculation again, but it's basically based on annual hours worked. Most county employees work annual hours of 2080. So the 8 hours percentage, if you do your 12-hour shifts, you work 104 more hours than the regular county employees. So the exact equivalent to get the same annual hours would be 8.4. So we don't agree to the 12. We did agree to your 8.03D, which we agreed to last time, of the line of duty death. On 8.03E, we would like to keep the 12-month calendar rather than the annual evaluation period because it's 12-month rolling calendar. And we did not agree to any of the additional language in Article 8. So F, G, 8.05, 8.06, 8.07. In 8.08,
Just let me go back and clarify, 8.02D, you said you did agree to that?
sorry, 8.02D, yes.
Okay. And you agreed scheduled but maintain the 8 hours in 802A. Okay. Or 803A, yeah.
803D, we added that language. I think we had that in there last time we met as well. 803E, we want to maintain the 12 months in lieu of the annual evaluation period. And then we did not agree to F or G. That leaves 8.04. There was no changes there. We did not agree to 8.05 or 8.06 or 8.07. In 8.08, which is the court summons, it was, you guys were supposed to let us know if it was the day before or the day after. It's not the employee's choice. For scheduling purposes, we want it to either always be the day before or always be the
Okay,
day
I don't
after.
remember our discussion that way. I thought it was either or, but obviously we agree that it's one or the other, not, okay.
Right, and then that's for scheduling needs. It'll make it easier on everybody if we always know that it is either the day before or the day after. So, and that's, we're up for whatever you guys propose there on that day before, day after. Article 10, we maintain FLSA on that, and we don't agree to any of the additional language. Article 12, we did review what you proposed last time. We still didn't agree that there was an apples to apples comparison. And we've called some other counties and got some information, and I will say the shift pay that you guys receive is unheard of anywhere. When I've called these counties, yeah, shift differential, they are, you know, please don't tell our employees that your employees get that for shift pay. So that is unheard of in other counties. From June of 21 through February of 2022, there was an increase in medic pay by $7.36 an hour, and an increase in medic pay $7.36 an hour, and EMT pay $4.58 an hour.
What dates were those?
Between June 1st of 2021 and February of 2022. And then, of course, the annual 3% increases that all county employees get. So that being said, we did not agree to the additional language. And as far as critical care differential, I think that is something that they are working on internally. And at the point that we actually had a qualified critical care area, they would entertain this article, but it's not, they're not there yet. Article 15, we would maintain uniforms in Article 15. I think that was just recently increased to $400 as per your SOGs. Article 1502, we would maintain county policy for holidays. Article 1505, we did agree to the recertification fees. And so when we send our proposals, they will be different numbers than what I'm saying now, because I'm using your numbers.
All right.
Just want to make sure that, make that clear.
Okay.
Light duty assignments, that we follow the work comp law and FMLA on that, so we would not add that to the contract. 1507, we are providing radios. It must be a county employee, so students don't get radios, but county employees are getting the radios. Since we're doing that as an operational procedure, we would not add that to the contract. And as far as 1508, we are not adding that to the contract. You can request to meet with your leadership at any time. Since we maintain Article 1502, we would not entertain Article 21. Article 22.
Well, let me, one question on whether or not it appears in Article 15 or whether it appears in a new article. the practice has been that aside from the uniform allowances provided to employees, the county every 2 years provides new boots to the employees. But it's been unclear recently whether or not that remains the policy. So,
So we had two separate, we had your employee allotment fund, which was the $290, and then boots were ordered from the general uniform budget every 2 years. I got some clarification from Cooper that that's changed, and now the boots are now coming out of the employee-specific allotment. So we've increased it from $290 to $350, but now you're including boots in
actually,
that.
Nikki just said it was 400.
Is it
Four.
400? 350,
Okay,
I'm sorry,
okay.
350.
So we increased it to $350, but now you subtract boots out of that $100, $150 for boots. So now we've actually decreased the uniform allotment back down to like 200 is essentially what's happened. So we've actually seen a decrease there, not an increase if we're including the boots.
So if it helps shed some light on how that worked, we made a proposal not long after I started that we could do half of the department on one cycle year and half of the department on another, because the cost of boots, you know, you're gonna get a good pair of boots,
Right.
it's gonna cost around $200. One of the issues we ran into is towards the end of the fiscal budget year, in September, we close the ability for anybody to order anything, because anything that is not received and paid for by September 30th, which is, our fiscal budget year, then is moved over to the next budget year. So that comes off of that. Now, it's not a lot, but we have to close that down. One of the issues we were having is a month or so prior to the end of that fiscal budget year, employees would go on and just order copious amounts of stuff just to finish out what was in their account. So one of the things we had said is if we can maintain a full year of understanding how much we would have left over in the PO, and we use Galls currently, that's where we get all of our uniforms from. The local uniform company no longer is in business, unfortunately. So we have to, we're bound by Galls now, pretty much. So with that, knowing how much money is left over from what we put in the PO, and I'll tell you this past year, our PO was $75,000 and we increased it to $90,000. Knowing that, these shirts that we're wearing now used to be 50-something dollars, they've gone up to 75, et cetera. So we have to account for that. But that proposal we made, however, other things that unavoidable costs, like one of the things we had over $100,000 in preventable damage to vehicles last year. So that all gets moved around. It doesn't stay in the same particular fund when we have to make those coverages to spend the money. So our proposal was if we have the ability to maintain adequate use of what is in the account now, we can look at what the difference is between our budget and what we actually spend. We would split it basically in half and say half the department will get new boots on this cycle and half the department will get new boots on another cycle. I would suggest you think about how you'd like to put that in writing, how you'd like to word that.
But you're okay with maintaining that practice of...
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we
Yeah.
recognize it will be every 2 years, and we
Absolutely.
don't
Yeah.
anticipate they'll
Footwear.
get them every year.
Footwear is one of the
Okay.
single most
All right.
important things. It's just probably the single most costly thing we have.
Okay, so we will
Okay.
work on modifying
Okay,
that.
yeah, all right.
Article 22, relief employee.
Hold on.
Sorry, okay.
My notes are very sketchy on what you've said
Am
so
I talking
far,
too
Nikki.
fast?
I don't write as fast as you speak. Okay.
Article 22, there's a departmental SOG for relief employees, so we would not add this to the contract. And the interfacility and out-of-town transfers are an operational need, and we would not entertain Article 23. Would you like to caucus, or you got questions?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions before we caucus?
No, let's caucus and then we'll come back to
Okay.
discuss.
I'll stop the recorder.
By the way, I do have one question before we start the report. Article 6, your response to our proposal was maintain your language, but the language,
Yes.
current language in the contract is just like 3 sentences. I mean, there's,
With the
but I thought
understanding-
we had agreed that we really needed to revisit that and work something out on how seniority would be handled.
we did have that discussion, but with the understanding that all of this that you have proposed is maintained in other policies already.
Okay. I think one of the problems that we have is that there appears to be, at a minimum of 2 different policies addressing pretty much every issue that arises, the HR policy, and the EMS department policy. And they don't always coincide, which is the reason why we made proposals to try to clarify how the issues are dealt with in the collective bargaining agreement, so that, which policy applies here? Is it, is it the HR policy, or is it the department policy? Which is the reason why we would really like to have some clarification as to how those issues are addressed when the policies conflict, or at least are ambiguous about how they're addressed.
We'll have to take a look at that.
Okay.
They need to be consistent. I agree.
All right, it makes it easy for everybody.
And
That's
can
kind
you, what specifically?
Well, the holiday pay is one of those. I know we've kind of gone over that ad nauseum, but the holiday pay, there's an EMS policy where the language states that they will be paid for all hours worked. There's a county policy that says that, and then there's a county policy that outlines the 12 hours specifically, or the equivalent of whatever your shift is supposed to be. So there's 2 policies that say one thing and 1 policy that says something else. And we have an EMS specific policy that says you'll be paid for all hours worked on those holidays.
So is that a departmental
It's a-
SOG?
yes.
So departments cannot pay more than what county policy allows. And we have found in some of our review that some of our departmental policies are in conflict with the county policy. County policy does supersede in that case, because that would have to go to the board for approval if we were gonna agree to pay more. And if it was in your union contract, that would be considered going to the board. At this time, we do maintain county policy in practice, which is you get paid for all hours worked on the holiday, plus your scheduled shift for the holiday pay. So whether that's an 8, 10, or 12-hour shift, that's what the holiday pay is. But if you work 13 hours, you get paid 13 hours.
That is not currently.
And 12 hours of holiday pay.
Okay, so.
So that you get paid for the 13 hours, but you only get 12 hours of the additional pay for holiday.
So
Right.
every scheduled shift, and that's how holidays are billed in our current timekeeping system, whatever your scheduled shift is what your holiday is. Whether it's 8, 10, 12, that's your holiday pay. And then hours worked are clocked in and out.
And that, I think, was where some of the confusion came in, is because there is a policy, a county policy that says you'll be paid for all hours worked on the holiday,
And
under
then-
the holiday pay section. I think that's where some of the
And I
confusion.
think there's some additional language in there that then addresses that piece that you're referring to, so we can look at that and clarify that.
No.
Okay.
We are back from caucus, and I have opened the team session. I did not realize we did not open it earlier. We typically only open it if one of the bargaining team members are not in the room, and I noticed you were all here. But while we were sitting in the back, I saw some people trying to get on, so it's open now.
All right.
But the recording is always available, usually within 48 hours of the session.
Okay. All right. So we only have about 22 minutes left in today's session, so
Yes.
I'm going to go through, give you our response. Obviously, as we've done in the past, I will follow up
An email?
with email in writing, what the new positions that we take on the open issues. And I would like to end all of our discussion enough time for us to pick another date for negotiations, rather than, the waiting 5 months before, between sessions.
I got it.
Thank you.
All right. Article 4, the union rights. From our perspective, it's necessary for us to do our time with the new employees at post 10. Now, we're perfectly willing to TA the language that you gave us this morning. As long as you understand that the way we interpret this is that department-specific orientation is the orientation that occurs at post 10. So if we do execute this as a tentative agreement, we see that as the agreement of the parties that the union's access to new hires during orientation is at post 10.
I don't think, since we have moved orientation, and I do apologize because that was a different discussion than what we had last time. We are, with me moving into this role, we're streamlining some processes, moving it back downtown to make sure everybody gets the same information when they come to orientation. And I think that our stance, Mr. Moreno's stance, is we want to maintain that consistency. All union, regardless of where they work, 3 o'clock on Monday. And it's a set time, it's always a set time, so it makes it easy for everybody. So that would be our stance on that.
And the problem from my perspective is that generally relief employees generally are not still around at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because the afternoon session of that HR orientation deals with benefits and stuff which relief employees don't get. So that means that any newly hired relief employees, the union doesn't have access to them if it's at 3 o'clock on the Monday afternoon down here. So we're maintaining our position that we would like to have our union officers given access to new hires at the part of the orientation that takes place at post 10.
You want to just send some language?
Yeah, we, as I said, we'll reword that.
We'll review that
That is the-
internally. I'll discuss with my staff on how relief is handled currently, and we'll see what we can.
Okay.
Now, and again, since you guys are the ones who work here, if I'm neglecting anything, please don't hesitate to.
I just want to, if we can clarify that, because our understanding is that they were cut loose after lunch and they did not return to the afternoon portion.
For the relief employees, that is probably correct.
Yeah.
So we can probably make some internal changes and ask them.
They could just come at noon, because they leave at noon, so you could have that noon hour, because the rest of the people go to lunch. So you could have that noon hour.
Our language currently says in-house, correct?
Yes.
Why are we changing our language
We're,
of the old CBA?
Because there's no longer in
There is.
departmental,
There is.
it's training, it's not orientation.
So then change the wording
From
from orientation to
orientation to
training.
department training for new
So
hires.
Mr. Moreno had to go answer a call, but he was pretty clear on consistency. So with him not in the room, I can't
Well,
really speak to that
all
too much.
Well, we'll reword and, yeah.
If it helps provide some clarity, one of the issues we have is that if you look at the last, and I think we can go back 9 orientation classes, not all of the classes have been met with by the union. The requests for meetings with these orientees as per the CBA, some of them were done by text message, some of them were done by email, some of them were done by phone, and none of them are done on consistent days. So we don't know if the union's coming to meet with new employees on a day that they're training on, when they're out in the field doing EVOC. So they're gonna be out on the road, we have to make arrangements to get them back. So there needs to be some form of consistent time across the board that needs to be done. And that's the issue that we're having, that I think you're missing there, is it's
Well, it was never a
it's a
problem
random
before.
request.
Regardless of that.
Right.
We want to be consistent across all unions, and that is during orientation. Orientation is now all done in HR. So propose what you want to propose.
We sure will.
That is
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
our stance right now.
All right.
And we'll look at what you propose.
Article 6 seniority, now the discussion we had, there seems to still be an acknowledgement that there needs to be some consistency in seniority. So I'm hoping that we will get something from the county on this issue rather than the couple of sentences that are.
Would you like us to propose something additional in Article 6?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that.
All right.
was there any opposition to what we proposed in Article 6?
Well, that will be in their response.
I mean, just,
So as far as what I said earlier is, 1A is in Article 8, leave accruals is is all in Article 8. 1B, shift assignments are operational need. The accrual of seniority, we don't really track accrual of seniority, and we don't have a way to track accrual of seniority, so number 2 is really irrelevant. Number 3, yeah, just the date of hire. But as far as is an accrual, but maintenance of seniority, this is already basically within our county policies of your date remains the same, except for if you change your classification, if you go from full-time to relief, which is considered a change of classification, or if you're gone for more than 1 year. And that's all pretty much county policy. So we could possibly put something a little bit like that.
And for the
That's what you're
majority of that,
looking
I definitely understand where you're coming from. I think our issue is that we're not really recognizing seniority in any capacity anymore. And previously, when it pertained to shift assignments, time slots, things like that, seniority was factored. And we recognize seniority on a county level, but for the people who've been here 10, 15, 20 years, it doesn't really provide them with anything if we're just going to ignore it and say that it's an operational necessity. Because give or take a couple of things, any paramedic can go to any place. So that there's really no operational need there. I mean, that's
But
definitely
now-
something where we can recognize seniority and give those employees something for the time that they've given the county.
Sure, and I agree 100% with the seniority piece. I think I've had discussions with Chad on my stance on seniority
Okay.
and how I feel about seniority, but not any paramedic can go to any position, because the problem we run into is when we have to move someone to a spot. If the person that's the EMT in that position has been there for 5 months, now we're putting a brand new paramedic with a brand new EMT. And that's an operational thing we have to be cognizant of, is we're not gonna put 2 brand new employees together on a truck if we can avoid it. The other piece, which is something you proposed in the second piece there, which it leads into that, is the fact that, and I'll just give an example, we have an employee currently that passed paramedic school, that's been here 19 years. That employee has 19 years worth of seniority based on their hire date. But once they became a paramedic, they now go to a different classification and go all the way to the bottom of the list.
Absolutely.
That's how it was when I got here.
Yeah.
So there's some trade over between those 2 pieces that causes issue when it comes to assignments. But the first thing that we always look at is, hands down, if there's an open position, just an open position, let's say, and someone goes, hey, I would like to move there, I'm willing to go to that position or what have you, it's always going to be by seniority. Who's the most senior person to go to that position? Unless there's a reason operationally, like we're bringing on 3, 4, 5 new orientees, and they have to go to specific places, well then there's a bigger picture you have to look at as to who are they assigned with and why.
And I think that this would fall more for those vacant positions. If something comes available and somebody wants to move to a time slot or something like that, but there's just nothing that we really recognize that in any formal capacity where it can be applied fairly. I think that there's just no way to do that without us actually putting that verbiage in there somewhere. So I would like to see some language on seniority that will work for both sides.
I would suggest something too from your side to think about, because I hear what you're saying. I would think about, so you say like if there's an opening and whoever's most senior wants to move that position. Well, that should certainly be allowable, as I just previously said, but if it's going to offset the number of capacity of number of people on shifts, there has to be a parameter in place to say you can't move to that position until such time we have someone adequately to fill your position, because it's going to put this one at this, this shift at this number of trucks and this shift at this number of trucks. I think that's an operational thing that needs to be maintained and considered as well.
Well, I think what we're talking about is that when it is a recognized open shift and you want it to be filled.
Right.
So that wouldn't raise that issue, chief.
I think
It actually, believe it or not, it does, but yeah.
like corrections considers it body for body. So if there's a vacancy and I say I want to move to A shift, then somebody has to move to my B shift. So they call it body for body, is what they refer to it as, and I think that's what Chief Torcell was
That's
getting
exactly what it is,
at.
because a recognized vacancy is simply an opening in a particular position. But if one shift has this many vacancies and another has this many vacancies, all you're doing is now switching where the vacancies are. If we know, for example, as I explained, we have orientees coming on that are going to be put full-time, ready in place on this date, we can say, hey, as we've done before, we can say, hey, on this date, they'll be ready to go, they'll be put on shift in full-time capacity. That's when you've requested your most senior, we'll move you to that spot. So that parameter has to be available, at least acknowledged somehow.
Okay, so we'll continue to draft language
Sure,
to try to get
And
this
we
to
will as well. I think that
Yeah.
that way maybe we can come come together on something
All right.
for at least Article 6.
All right. Okay, Article 8, it's 802D, you've agreed to that. 803A, we agreed to maintain the 8 hours that's in the current language on the, on sick leave. We've agreed that we'll add the word scheduled in the second sentence, so that particular section we have TA on. We agree to maintain the 8. In 803E, we would propose, rather than the annual evaluation period, we would propose to specifically recognize the 12-month period from January 1st to December 31st. On 803F, on doctor's notes, we would propose to reword our proposal to say, and again, I'll follow up in writing with this, but doctor's notes, comma, proof of illness, comma, may be required in accordance with HR policy 6.3 as it existed on January 1st, 2024. So referencing the policy, but referencing it as it exists today, so which precludes changes in the policy without violating the conduct of changes in the policy. Let's see. 803G, we propose to reword to employees who exhaust sick leave shall be allowed to use available annual leave before being placed on leave without pay. Which is consistent with the way it always used to be done. Correct? 805, funeral leave, we would keep our proposal as it is written. Basically, I'm going to be honest with you, this is the only municipal group of employees I have ever seen where bereavement leave was deducted from some other type of earned leave. Everywhere in doing this for a very long while, everywhere else I've ever been, bereavement leave is a separate paid leave that is not deducted from other leaves. So because that's obviously the big difference in our proposal. We're proposing it.
Understood.
Yeah. 806 emergency leave, we're maintaining that proposal. And in 807, annual leave and holiday leave shall be on a first come, first served basis. We're maintaining that because it is the practice.
We'll talk about the emergency leave real quick.
8.06. I thought we said we were keeping that proposal.
We are, but I want to.
Oh, okay, all right, yes, yeah.
And I'm sorry, I missed what you said about,
8.06, emergency.
The emergency leave.
oh yeah, I got that. You wanted to maintain 8.6, you wanted to maintain 8.7,
Yeah.
8.08.
We haven't,
Did you want to
she
say
wants to
something
make a
about it?
comment on 8.06 before.
Oh, okay.
Right, because we had discussed this previously, because as it stands right now, in the event that you have an emergency arise, we're basically not allowed to use sick or annual leave. So we're just having our employees go without pay in those instances. So either the emergency leave you would like to see, unless you can propose other language that just allows for the use of sick leave without it being required to be actual sick leave. And I understand that there's a policy about that, but we have to be able to pay our employees in the event there's an emergency and they just are going leave without pay for no reason. I mean, they have accrual banks for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, particularly in this part of the country, hurricanes and things can wreak havoc with people's homes. They wake up in the morning and they're scheduled to go to work, but, their house has 3 feet of water in it.
Well, we're gonna work anyway.
How do you-
They're gonna be working it out.
All right, forget that one.
That's a bad example.
Yeah. It's not a hurricane, they just happen to have an old pipe that burst.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
Better example,
Yeah.
better example.
I mean,
Understood, we'll
it has to be dealt with, so.
Yeah, we'll review it.
All right, then 808, we think it makes more sense to keep what we proposed either the shift before the shift, and depending upon how their schedule works out. But we would agree that we should add some language to, but add language that employees will notify the supervisor of their choice within 24 hours of receiving the summons. So that you wouldn't be waiting until the day of the court leave. Are they taking the shift the night before off, or are they doing the night after?
And I think you probably, I mean, understand why. If it's on Wednesday morning and I don't work Tuesday, then I gotta work Wednesday night, it doesn't do me any good to have the night before off, because I wasn't there anyway, so.
I think the additional language might help that, so.
Okay, all right. Yeah, obviously, we're trying to do it so that you guys aren't left, waiting till the last minute to find out what you have to cover.
And that was the concern with the.
Yeah.
current
You said within 24 hours, sir?
Within
Of
24 hours.
Yeah,
of
whether
receiving-
of receiving the summons, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, I almost feel like just skipping over Article 12, but I won't.
10 is the next one.
10.
10's the next one.
Yeah, yeah, 10 is the next one, all right. Yeah, here we are.
We did it out of order too, so.
Oh, just maintaining our proposal.
Yeah, at 10, we're fine with withdrawing 10-9,
That's right.
because that would be a change in working conditions anyway, so we can withdraw 10-9. We would like to maintain
Oh, here we are,
10-4.
10, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we're maintaining, but withdrawing 10, 9.
And I do, if we can go to 10-7, I think the overtime accountability, I am not in disagreement that there needed to be a policy to deal with this. But there should be some flexibility there. People wake up sick, things happen. I mean, to not be able to cancel an overtime shift, and we're seeing that more and more where people are just not being allowed to cancel their overtime at all. So we need to have something there that gives a little bit more flexibility. Otherwise, we're gonna have people who don't work on overtime anymore.
Article 12, 12.04, will agree to go back to the current $1.15 an hour for the field training differential. But we're maintaining our position on 12.01 and 12.02, and we will give you new language on 12.05, the critical care differential. Article 15, we will agree in 1502 to leave it in accordance with the county policy on holiday pay. And we will withdraw 1507, 1506, 1507, and 1508. So that should leave us with a TA on Article 15. Article 21, we maintain, because I thought we had, whether we do it in Article 15 under or we address it separate, it doesn't really matter to us. But we maintain, the $350 in our proposal, 21, either 2101, either do it in Article 21 and obviously 2101 addition to the policy, this will prevail, or we add the language into the reference to uniforms in Article 15. But 2102, specify the amounts, 2104, and I thought we were in agreement on that the Class A uniforms would be provided for after 2 years, after a minimum of 2 years on the job. And
we'll get you language with.
About the boots every 2 years on an A-B rotation. And relief employees will maintain Article 22. And Article 23, we hear what your objections to it. We will reword that and provide, our thing basically is just trying to protect not just our employees, but, protect the public. And if somebody is sent for a long distance, interfacility transfer on it, and they work 18 to 20 hours, and by the time they get back, they're scheduled to start their next shift in 2 hours or 3 hours. That's just unsafe. So we'll provide you new language there on Article 20. Okay, now, we still have 1 minute, we can set another date.
You got your calendar, Nikki?
Now, we already are scheduled to meet on March 14th from 9 to 11 to discuss the vehicle monitoring system. Is there the potential to do maybe the afternoon of that day for the next bargaining
Mr.
session?
Moreno and I are both available.
Is it the 13th?
The 14th, Wednesday,
It's the 14th.
no, it's
It's
Wednesday the
March
13th, correct?
It's the 14th.
14th. which is
Thursday.
the
Oh,
Thursday.
okay, Wednesday, you did, you're right.
I'm
Sorry,
available.
it's the 14th.
You're available?
I'm available.
Everyone's available?
Sorry?
Why don't we?
I know.
Why don't we allow a break from 11 to 12, and we
And
can
then,
start at 12 o'clock?
yeah, absolutely, that will work.
Work for.
Yeah, okay.
um,
And I will obviously get you the reworks on our position by email, Nikki, prior to that date.
So we said that first session that we already scheduled was 9 to 11?
Right.
And
And then we'll take a
from
break
11 to
and do,
12.
okay.
Yeah.
And then do 12 to 2 for,
12
okay,
to 2 will work, yes.
okay.
So if it doesn't take, if the first session doesn't take the whole 2 hours, can we just?
Because they're advertised, we can't really do it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It may not,
I don't think it will
yeah,
personally.
yeah. But just in case.
Sure.
Can we use that caucus room for a while, just so I can clarify what it is I need to do to rework the
I
proposal?
only blocked it till 11, but I don't think anybody's going in there. so
Okay,
you-
well,
you
if somebody
should
does,
be- you
throw,
should be okay.
come down, throw us out, we'll leave without issue.
This room will be open if you want to just stay in.
Oh, okay, all right.
So that's one option.
Okay.
All right, I will send the invitation for the next sessions, and we'll be looking for articles from you, Mr. Anderson,
Okay,
and I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the recorder. Thank you. Thank you.
Make sure, just keep that way.